Hello and welcome to the Daily News, everybody. I think this is the first podcast I've done in like a week and a half. DT
Whoa.
couldn't get together with me last week, and I have all these things that I wanted to do solo podcasts on, and I was like, just didn't feel right. Didn't have the time. I'm lisping like a mother bleeper. Anyways,
Hey,
start.
consistency is king, my friend.
I know.
Consistency
I
is king.
figure it was funny the first time that I went on a Zoom with Paul Lapalisse from the Red Blacks to try and get ready for a game back in like week 4 was right when I had got these Invisalign in, which if you listened to last week's show, you know that I got them in, and he was like, "Whoa." He was like, "What's going on?" I went on a Zoom with him today because I have the Red Blacks Ticats game this week. He didn't even mention it. It was because it's people just get used to you being like, "Hi guys, how are you?"
Yeah, now you have a permanent list. Until you start calling the game, you're gonna forget how to talk without those things in.
Dude, it's funny. Like I actually took out the trays, okay, on the drive home from somewhere the other night, and I just decided I need to try talking without these because I have them in for 22 hours a day. So yeah, it actually got into my head a little bit, and I put on City in Color on the old Spotify Shuffle. Just crushed it, screaming, windows down, beautiful night.
Practice.
The sun was setting. I was like enunciating every lyric that was in I think it was Two Coins that was playing from City in Color, which is a fantastic song. But anyways,
Well,
yeah.
let me let you in on a little secret. I had
Yes.
Invisalign before. Yeah.
Did you
And I'll
really?
tell you what, you don't realize how much you eat
Oh,
until you have that in,
dude.
because dude, I realize what I eat, like I eat probably every 15 to 20 minutes. I'll eat
Yeah.
something every 15 to 20 minutes. And it's like you're constantly taking them out, putting them back. I was like, this is ridiculous. There's no way I'm hitting 22 hours out of the day. Like I'm like
So
maybe 15.
here's the thing. I'm totally with you. I didn't realize how much I ate until I put them in, but then I realized, oh, this is just like a really poorly marketed weight loss product.
Right.
because my thinking was like, oh, I'll take them out and
Shit,
pop
I
them in,
can't
take
eat
them out and pop
now.
them in. And I was like, no, because I have to brush every time before I put them back in. And I'm not doing that 8 times a day, which I usually eat like once every hour or 2 hours kind of thing, like chop like yogurt with granola. And then I'll have an apple, and then I'll have like my normal lunch, which is like a salad with something. And then it's just like, even if I'm having like pre-workout or
Yeah.
something to have during my workout, it's like, no, because all you can have is water and unflavored water. You can't have colored water because it'll stain your trays. And so
It's a
I
mess, man.
so I literally just have like stopped eating in proper ways, and I've had to adjust my eating schedule. So it's like I will prep all of my food, and the second I pop them out, I'll maximize my time with them out by just eating right away. It's
Yeah.
the whole thing. So I agree with
Functional
you.
eating
But
at this point.
I know. Anyways, let's give a shout out to our good friends over at Fox 40. Master your game plan. Fox 40 coaching boards. Choose from a range of clipboards and carry boards to help with your sideline needs. Visit fox40shop.com. Shop coaching boards and more. Take 15% off your entire order with the code CFP15. Use that promo code to get yourself 15% off of your order. Always great to have Fox 40 be along with us here on the ride on CFP. We are recording this the middle of the first quarter. Between Edmonton and Montreal, Thursday night football is going on as we speak.
Was
And
it 6-0? I think I looked. It was less.
yeah, just very early on, it was
Yeah.
Beatty that gets into the end zone, the running back for Edmonton. But I did have to laugh because uh, one of the, in my opinion, BS excuses that Danny Maciocia gave for, hey, I want going to be the head coach, was
Hey, but let's go. Did we all knew this was happening?
100%. The entire
Yeah,
this
okay.
is
I
this
think
is
everybody in the world knew this was happening.
it, yeah, like, and that was one of the things I wanted to put. I said last week on the breakdown that I wanted to put out a podcast just called Premeditated Murder because
Right.
that's what it was. Like everybody knew when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen, who it was going to
Cavis
happen
knew it
to.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, you had to know Cavis knew it. Like
100%.
it's what it's the whole game plan was the whole way through, and it was just the first sign of something going wrong.
Yeah,
It's okay. We'll flip it over, and I'll be that coach.
yeah. And so, and even like, Glenn Suter during the first quarter here, he's like, to anybody who thinks that Danny Maciocia just wanted to be a head coach again, it's just not true. And I'm like, then why is he the head coach right now? Because if you don't want to be the head coach next year, which Dave Naylor has reported explicitly, that apparently Danny Maciocia has no interest in being the head coach next year. He just thought that he was the voice that needed to calm the room so they could move forward in this season. I'm like, well, if you don't want to be the coach moving forward, you're just shooting yourself in the foot by being the coach now because you're not allowing the coach that already has a connection with that room to be the coach, and you're not putting somebody in place to build a connection with that room to help you going into next season. So
Well,
what are you
and so
what are you
this is
doing?
kind of it's a it's a buddy club. right? So wherever these coaches go, wherever these GMs go, whatever it might be, they have trust. It's a big loyalty business, right?
Yep.
This coaching world, the management world. So all it is yeah, Cavus is a good coach, but Maciocia is like, listen, even if he's not going to coach next year, because who knows? At this point, we don't know,
Or
right?
Khari, you mean?
Sorry, Khari.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah, Cavus. Yeah, not Cavus.
Well, I
Gosh.
was just thinking Cavus because he was in Montreal. So yeah, yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And
But
Edmonton.
Khari, and so as soon as Maciocia gets in there, he might not coach next year, but he's hiring his buddies all
Yeah.
back. Noel Thorpe is the first guy they bring back
Oh,
in, right?
that
And you
killed
had to
me.
know Thorpe was on the phone probably at the in the off season, and Maciocia's like, hey, at some point you're coming in as the DC. That's what we're gonna do. And now whoever he's got on the phone for the next head coach, whether it's him or one of his buddies, that's what's gonna happen. So it might not be him, but he might get one of his buddies in there and it would be one of those kind of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that we have talked about this previously, and this is just me like spinning an unnecessary conspiracy theory, but Jeff Reinbold didn't show up for work after he signed to be with them. And a lot of that is just Jeff's in Hawaii and he has his own lifestyle and he wants to do what he wants to do and he re-upped with television in the UK and whatever, it's fine. But I do wonder if there was a part of Jeff that read the room as somebody who's been around a lot of different organizations and seen a lot of different power dynamics. He might have gotten there, signed on, been like, cool, I'm in. And then kind of got wind from people around the league of like, oh, this is probably just going to be Maciocia coaching at some point. And he's like, yeah, you know what? Hawaii sounds good.
I think it was a little bit more than that because don't forget when Jeff was in Hamilton and ended up was being the DC,
Hmm.
right? With the management that was there, he ended up getting fired as the DC halfway through that year. Now it was a disaster of a year anyway. I think that was the 60-1 loss in
Okay.
Calgary and it was a mess of a year. That's when June Jones came in halfway through the season.
Right. Yeah, it was 2018. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Or 17 was
but
when it was 0-8 and 60-1. And yeah, so that was 2017 was the disaster. And then 2018 was Jeremiah and Speedy's crazy good year. Yeah.
right when June had it the whole year. But
Right.
don't forget, so then the management that fires Jeff, he ends up coming back as
Hmm.
a special teams coach because of
June.
Orlando.
Oh, yeah, true.
Because of and he was like, you know what, I like where this is going. So I believe that Jeff and Khari, probably what he saw in Khari, I'm sure that's why Jeff signed on initially. Now, what happened from there, I honestly can't say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do not know. I've heard certain rumors, but that's all they are at this point is rumors.
Yep.
But who knows? Who knows? But I believe that with Khari there, Jeff would have been like, you know what? I don't care who's above here. I don't care if it's Danny Maciocia. I don't care if I like him or don't. I like where Khari's going. I like what's going on. So I think it was something outside of that, but maybe. I mean, shoot, you never know.
Yeah, trying to connect the dots is tough when there's so many different layers to this stuff, and you don't know who's really closest friends with who, and you know who wants to screw somebody else over. I will say that in the year 2022, taking a black coach in a league that is proud of its diversity at various points, we can get into that with the Jeremiah Masoli hit, and the idea that like Baron Miles gets gassed, Khari Jones gets gassed, and in comes Maciocia and Noel Thorpe. I was just like, I'm not playing the race card on this one. There aren't a lot of people out there who have been. I don't think it's because of race. That's not what I'm saying, but it was just like, it's just unfortunate for diversity in a league that like Orlando is a shining pillar of a diverse coach who is doing an amazing job of carrying the flag and showing like, hey, diversity is strength because I'm really freaking good at my job, regardless of what the record shows at this point. Because Hamilton says we talked about with Luke Tasker last week had a bunch of weird bounces and whatnot, but yeah, Kahari's not going to be out of work for very long. I'm actually
No.
I'm shocked he hasn't been hired as an offensive consultant, a coordinator, or something for a team because he's really good at what he does and he understands this league more than a lot of the retreads that have come from different eras or different generations. But
And
yeah,
I'll tell you what, the hardest thing to do is to get the trust of a room, of a
yes,
professional athlete room. Because I'll tell you, every single pro out there thinks they know better than the coach that's there, than the GM. They know how to run things better. When you get a coach that can come in there, control a room, control a culture, control an atmosphere, and get these pro guys, these adults at this point, for the most part, to follow you, to be excited to be on that team. And I mean, when we have when VA was on here and he's talking about Khari, and just in any interview ever about Khari, he's awesome. He's such a good culture fit. He really helps everybody out. It's like
Well, this is what
man,
bothered me, Mike.
it's so upsetting. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
this honestly, this is what pissed me off. And like, I got to call Montreal, Ottawa next week, and I'll be on a Zoom call with Danny Maciocia. And it's like, whatever, that's my job. I don't care. This is what pissed me off about this whole thing is that when we all see it coming from a billion miles away,
Yeah.
and we know that Khari is a talented coach, the hell we doing? Like, what is the point? Like, when we know he's a good coach, when we know that he deserves more time to figure this out, what are we doing? And it bothered me in that sense, but it also bothered me in the idea that like I'm looking at Montreal and the reasons that were given. Like Maciocia's press conference when he came out via Zoom was, I just thought the room needed a change to be made and we needed some motivation. And then he's just like started spouting things where he's like, the discipline was really bad. And I'm wondering why players aren't being taken off the field, which I think was just Michael Wakefield, who ended up getting ejected for 2 misconduct penalties against Saskatchewan in week 5. But he's like, or week 4, he's like, I wish we had more discipline in this. The first play on special teams tonight in this Thursday night football game against Edmonton, there's a holding call against Montreal. The next return, which is the second time they've touched the ball, Regis Sibasu takes a holding penalty for Montreal. Like they had touched the ball on 4 plays because it was kick return, incomplete pass, punt. Edmonton goes down and scores, and then Montreal gets the ball back on a kick return. 2 of the 4 plays that they had were holding calls, and I'm not saying like, I almost tweeted out, but I thought I would just leave it here for the listening audience because I love you guys. The idea that like half the time that Montreal has touched the ball with Danny Maciocia as the head coach, they've taken a penalty. This team's out of control. You got to get rid of this head coach. I mean, they got discipline issues. It is bad. And I'm being sarcastic, obviously, but
Yeah.
that's the type of thing that drives me nuts is like, talking to Rolando Steinauer in the Zooms today ahead of the Ottawa Hamilton game. And I was talking with him about the offense, and he said, listen, Tommy Condell's really damn good at his job. Our offense is struggling. There's been some bad bounces. We've had some turnovers. Our first down production is not good enough. The run pass balance is off, but it's because of game plan stuff, not because we're not trying to run the ball. And it's like, there are reasons for these things, but Tommy knows what he's doing, and I have great faith in him. He says, when things are going good, coaches get way too much praise. When things are going poorly, we get killed. And it's the same idea, I think, with Khari. As I'm looking at this, and it's like, they take a couple of penalties. Was that really on the coach? Like, how much as a coach can you actually influence? It's almost like in baseball when you talk about a manager and like, my team's committing too many unforced errors. I'm a 70-year-old dude wearing a baseball uniform standing in a dugout. The hell am I supposed to do to fix our errors? We're an error-prone team because we haven't scouted properly and we've decided to pay a bunch of players that can't get the ball from shortstop to first base. It's like, I don't know why we kill coaches for certain. If you're mismanaging your timeouts, if you're challenging something that's obviously not going to get overturned, like, yeah, that's a direct impact on the game where a coach is wasting his ability to influence. But other than making you
coaches,
guys,
though,
but other than making you guys like run wind sprints, how do you change the discipline of a team? Because that was given as a legit reason for why Khari Jones is no longer the head coach of Montreal. And I'm like, how do you blame that on him?
I think as a coach, especially if you're going to look at a head coach, from the ones I've seen that are just strictly head coach, right? Because if you're a head coach and offensive coordinator, well, then it's, you're more so the offensive coordinator with, okay, let's get practice rolling properly, right? But if you're like a head coach and you're focused on, okay, how are we going to get this team into a certain direction? That takes time every single year. It's like trying to teach your kid not to stick something in, in an outlet. It's like the first time you say, "Hey, don't stick that knife in the outlet." They're gonna look at you, stick it back into the outlet.
Yeah.
But after a while, you keep hitting it, hit the high points, hit what most important. Make sure you keep reiterating that stuff. That comes out as the season goes down, and then once the playoff starts happening. So it's so hard to tell every single year because realistically, you said it perfectly. The head coach can say, "Hey, guys, we can't take penalties," but I go out there and I decide to spin a guy around because, I don't want him to make a play because I don't want my guy to make the tackle. Well, that's on me. I know you could say, "Hey, didn't you listen to Coach O say don't take a penalty?" I said, "Yeah, I just oops."
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly what it is. So, but that's the nature of the business, man.
Yes.
If it's not going well, the first one out is the head coach, especially if it's not the GMs or any sort of upper management's guy, right? And you hear this all the time, my guy, the guys. And if it's not your guy, And as soon as there's any sort of sign of, oh, this isn't working, first guy gone is head coach. And then the next guy gone is the guy that's closest to the head coach. And that's just how it goes, right? And Coach O's is right. Oh, Coach O is right. They get too much praise when they're doing well because it's on the players, and they get too much hate when it's not going well because it's on the players. It's a culture thing. They just got to reiterate what's good, what's bad, what to keep doing, and that really only pans out as you go on in the season.
I will mention, it's well said by you. I will mention that there was one funny moment in the Zoom, which like all of this stuff is off the record, but some of these funny little notes, I don't think O would be offended by me saying like, hey, he said this. I asked him about the idea that not running the football well enough or enough in general, not enough attempts, has been a point of contention for some Ticats fans this year. And he said, well, when we were in a game against Saskatchewan, they've got, a million sacks against guys, so we're just trying to get the ball out quickly. We're playing against Calgary, and based on our scouting report, we thought, well, we should spread them out, so we went empty a little bit more. And so he's like, so that's 2 of our 4 games where we have a game plan that says we're not going to put it back in the backfield and just run it right at you because it just doesn't make sense based on what we've seen on film. But fans don't necessarily break down film. Fans go to the game and they just see what they see, and they get angry when you're, hey, why aren't we running the ball? Well, because you're going to run it into the pile for a gain of 2 and have 2nd and 8. What the hell's
Right.
the point? And
Right.
so, and again, the coaching staff can be wrong. They're human, but the fans can be wrong. They're human. That's the nature of this whole kind of interaction. But I mentioned that to O today. I said, kind of reminds me of Kent Austin when CJ Gable was around, and always the conversation was, why aren't we running the ball more? What, we got CJ
Yeah.
Gable. CJ Gable should be getting
Yeah.
35 touches a game. It was like, this is the CFL, man. That's probably not how that's going to go down. But I remember covering the team on radio, and that was always a discussion point, was why isn't CJ getting the ball more? And O just kind of paused and goes, well, I'll say this. When we're 15-3, I had people telling us all the different ways that we were broken, and
Right.
we were bad, and that we weren't doing things correctly. It doesn't matter if we're 3-15 or 15-3. You guys are going to find something we ain't doing right.
You know what? He said that the one time in a team meeting too, and it was hilarious. He goes, hey, and listen, no matter what position you are in the league standings, whatever, somebody at the bar is going to have a game plan or a play that is better than the ones that you've drawn up. And but I mean, I will say one thing though, Toronto might try to do that. Give the ball to Andrew Harris 35 times,
Dude,
like we're talking.
I got to give you this stat. I was looking through because I was chipping away at some prep for the game this weekend, and I was going through Toronto's running plays so far this year. Okay, these are called running plays, excluding sneaks. Because also weird. Toronto only has 3 sneaks on the year, and I understand they've only played in 3 games because they had week 1 bye and then the bye before they had touchdown Atlantic here on Saturday. But
Yeah,
they've only played 3 games. But they've had 1 sneak from McLeod Bethel Thompson, which he converted, and then 2 sneaks from Austin Simmons, which was in BC on the goal line in the first quarter when they got stuffed both times, and then didn't end up scoring a touchdown there and got the field goal. That was their only
maybe that's
points.
why.
All right.
That's wow, this is out of the playbook.
But in terms of rushing plays for the Toronto Argonauts this year, to your point, I just thought this was interesting. Their rookie draft pick, Daniel Adeboboye, has 3 carries, the entire year on called running plays. Speedy B has 1 jet sweep, and Andrew Harris accounts for the other 47 rushing attempts that they have called so far this year. It's 3 for the rookie, 1 jet sweep to Speedy, 47 rushing attempts that have been called for Andrew Harris.
But what a change of pace, eh? Like, It really goes to show, like, I've always thought, a running back's a running back. It really depends on the O-line and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, maybe Toronto has a good O-line too, but Winnipeg's usually known for having such a good O-line, right? The way Andrew Harris was running, and you could see it on film. The O-line was awesome. But for him to come into Toronto and absolutely take over that game, and then you look at that game and you say, how the hell did Toronto lose this football game? If you were just to
against
do the
Winnipeg,
box
you're talking about
against Winnipeg, yeah.
Okay.
If you look at that game against Winnipeg,
yeah,
where Andrew Harris ran for 110, 120,
yeah,
right? They threw for close to 300, maybe over 300 yards. Like, their yards were way above Winnipeg's, but it was just the costly turnovers, right? The one that McLeod Bethel Thompson just threw up. I think he's trying to get out of bounds and ended up just keeping it at bounds to Nick Taylor, I believe it was. And then the one right on the goal line. And Winnipeg finds a way to win. And I'll tell you what, even with those type of games, that's when you really know, like inside Winnipeg's locker room, that's when they're like, oh yeah, this is easy. Because we can win those games. We can win a game where we suck. You know what I mean? Where we play horribly, they outplay us. We just figure it out at the end and are able to make some plays.
I was putting together the because I'm doing a piece for SportsCenter that should be out on Monday, I think, that's about kind of like offensive efficiency and how teams are having success. Is it through the pass? Is it through the run? First down, second down, that kind of thing. And I was expecting Winnipeg's running game because I'm so used to them being like the most efficient in the top of the league and the most carries and all. And it was like the numbers were kind of gross. Like they were like sixth in rushing here, and like Zach is his numbers aren't great, but when they need it on second down and in the score zone, he's absolute money. And that's where you're like, yeah, to your point, we don't have to play great all the time. We just have like clutch guys that know how to win football games and when they have to play at their very best, and they always seem to. The other thing that I thought was really freaky, Mike, that this probably won't play all that well on podcasts because it's kind of a visual thing. But sometimes when I'm bored, and usually these days Twitter just kind of bores me, so I'll just flip open the CFL stats page, and I'll just start like flipping through numbers and seeing what actually jumps out to me and stuff. And this one I thought was kind of amazing. It's Dalton Schoen, who's jumped off the page as it stands right now for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and Greg Ellingson, and how similar their numbers are. So you have 28 targets for Greg Ellingson going into this big game on Friday night against Calgary. Dalton Schoen has 29. So Dalton Schoen has one more. Dalton Schoen has 21 catches. Greg Ellingson has 23 catches. So Ellingson has two more catches on one last target. 366 yards for Greg Ellingson, 333 yards for Dalton Schoen. Long catch of 66 for Ellingson, long catch of 70 for Schoen. 15.9 yard catch average for Dalton Schoen, 15.9 yard catch average for Greg Ellingson. Like, it's stupid. They're the same person right now. 3 touchdowns for Schoen, 3 touchdowns for Ellingson. 2 plays of over 30 for Ellingson, 3 plays of over 30 for Dalton Schoen.
They've somehow, this is post BC game though, right?
Yes, but this is also like, this is updated to this very moment. But what I'm saying is, you lose Kenny Lawler in Winnipeg, and you're like, oh man, he took a bunch of money at Wolf. Hopefully we find an answer. I thought Rasheed Bailey was going to go crazy. Turns out they just got this dude Dalton Schoen. They're like, hey, Greg Ellingson clone, and we're fixed.
Well, but give credit to Zach with that too. Like, I mean, that BC game, Zach decided, you know what, I'm going to show everybody why I'm the best in the world. Like, he was lights out. He would hit. I mean, he was dropping it in buckets all over the place. It was bad, really. Like, they made BC look not very good. You know what I mean? But the thing is, you're right. It's always this weird balance of trying to pay guys. Right? Try to pay a lot of money for top guys. I think there's certain positions that you can see just break a game open, right? Like, I think when you look at a guy like Jaguar Davis, you know what I mean, who I play with, that's why it's easy for me to say his name. But when he was out there, that's a guy you pay because he is an absolute difference maker, right? Or Willie Jefferson, right? Jeff Coat, same kind of thing. Mike Rose right now with Calgary. Those type of guys, they can destroy an offense, right? A receiver, I would think that a top receiver guy, but the problem is you can find so many guys that are coming out that are receivers that are highly skilled, all that kind of stuff, but it all goes down to the quarterback, right? Like, look at Edmonton. Edmonton's receiving core is loaded.
Yep. And they were last year as well.
Exactly, man, exactly. And it just comes down to, like, now Cornelius is playing, and we'll see how he is with another year. But
based on the first quarter, he's still Taylor Cornelius, based on what I saw.
And that's what I mean. So these receivers, they can get open, but if you're not throwing it on time, you're not feeling comfortable, you don't have confidence. It does not matter how much you pay these receivers. Use a whole cap on these receivers. If there's not a guy that's throwing the ball to you, it doesn't matter, right? And that's where the Schoen thing comes in, because it's like, okay, Zach is playing lights out. He's putting the ball in the right spot. These guys just got to run the route, give a little bit of shake to get open, but Zach's going to find you.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between when you look at the Edmonton and then the Winnipeg type thing, right?
I want to get your opinion here on the Masoli stuff just for a second, because it's a tricky dance between players association when you are defending guy who made a dirtbag hit that has a history that is really greasy, and the guy that you're defending him against is one of your star players, is a quarterback, is a franchise player for one of the 9 teams in this league. And I've been thinking a ton about this. I've been talking a lot with Dwayne Ford about this. I've told Dwayne on our game, Ottawa, Hamilton, Saturday afternoon after touchdown Atlantic, we are going to find a time where I am going to clear out of the paint and go ISO here, Dwayne Ford, here's the ball, and I'm going to go stand in the corner. And I want to just give him 90 seconds to say whatever he has to say, because Dwayne is, you might not show it on television. Dwayne is a passionate dude who cares about doing things the right way in sport, not just in our game, in sport. He loves sport, and he really wants to get, I think, some points out that I think people need to hear come out of Dwayne Ford in this game. So we've been talking about it a lot, how we want to handle it, the right approach, all the rest. But the simplest way that I can picture or break this down without stepping on any of Dwayne's points, which I want people to hear from him, not from me, I don't want to borrow his thoughts, is that when you're in the Players Association, from my perspective, it's really easy when you're going through bargaining, and it's good guy versus bad guy. Good guy is all of us band together. We are in this together. Let's get after it together. We are the players. We are going to strike if we need to in order to stay strong together, because we're going up against the big bad empire, which is the ownership. All of a sudden, you get into the season, the good guy and the bad guy are both inside the Players Association, and they're both paying union dues. And now the question becomes, and this is why I want to ask you as a player, because you understand this dynamic better, what is the responsibility of the Players Association, and what role do they play in creating more confusion and frustration in situations like this than they need to? Because it seems as though Garrett Marino got off a little bit here easier than he likely should have. And the reasoning for that being the Players Association, if they came down with something that was really severe, was going to appeal, was going to make a mess of this, and it's because they're doing their job. But in this case, it's like, you don't have to do your job, I think, is a lot of people's opinions.
Yeah, it's so tough, right? Because exactly like you said, they support both guys. They support Jeremiah, they support Marino. And I think the best way I can put it is a union is a union, no matter what it is. You hear about these people that work regular jobs, and you hear somebody's not doing their job correctly. Well, they can't get fired.
Yep.
Because this union is going to protect them. That's the job of the union. That is their number one role, is protect the people in this union. That's what the PA has to do. I think they're handcuffed in the sense of, we have to protect. It's like a defense lawyer. We have to protect this person. We have to get the least penalty we can against Marino, because it's one of our guys and we have to get him paid. That's the whole goal of the PA, right? Now, this is where smarter heads prevail, because I think the way you look at a situation like this, somebody can be like, you know what? This guy does not deserve an easy way off, right? The shit he pulled, what he said, the half-assed apology, all that kind of shit. The half-assed apology. There's a way to play this game, and I read it's like, yeah, I'm just a physical player and I play on the edge. No, that. You know what I mean? There is a way to play this game on the edge, being physical without being dirty. Okay? Sometimes low hits happen. I get it. Hard as a D lineman. But when you've really hurt somebody, and when the shit you were saying, you don't do that celebration. You don't do the half-assed apology. You don't say, I play on the edge. No, everybody plays on an edge. So I think this, with the PA and the CFL, cooler heads have to prepare in the sense where the PA says, okay, listen, we can't completely sewer this guy, because it's got to be a learning experience. We have to protect him. He needs to get paid. He's part of our association, right? That part where the discipline happens, that's on the CFL. That's on the team. That's on the Rough Riders. But what we can do is, I won't push back as much with if the CFL wants to give 4, 5, 6 games suspension, right? But you're right. If that did happen, then how the hell does it only get 4 games?
And
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the frustrating part from a communications perspective for me is that it's been sold to the public, because they're trying to appease those in Rider Nation, the most passionate, the largest fan base in Canada, which, with revenue sharing being what it is, they're very important to the overall health of the league. But then it's like, you're trying to appease them by saying, We've given him a large suspension, but it's really a bunch of suspensions stacked on top of each other, right? So for the hit itself, it's 2 games. You kidding me? Like, like last year, John Murphy at the end of the Eastern Final was caught on camera saying derogatory things to a fan,
Mm-hmm.
suspended indefinitely, not in the league at all this year. And you have confirmation based on the investigation and based on the interviews and everything that the CFL has done.
And Marino himself.
And he admitted, yes, in his apology, I don't even think he wrote anything. I think he said, "Can you put something together for me?" And somebody went and wrote and tweeted it out and said, "This is from Garrett Marino."
Yeah.
But in all of that, it's an admission of guilt.
Yeah.
And so you have that, and he gets 1 game for admission of guilt of saying something when you have somebody who's in the executive part of the league who gets indefinitely suspended for the year. No, I get it. Murphy was swinging at people, and it just looked horrific. But didn't the Marino thing look horrific? Like,
Yeah.
like the whole
And
thing
not even
did.
just that. You hit this diversity as strength campaign and
Yeah,
all this kind of shit. And then it's okay, exactly what we are trying to get away from. And what are we are launching this diversity of strength campaign to stop this kind of hate. And now you get that in a season and it's, how could you? How dare you? 1 game. It's like, okay, what are we talking about here?
yeah, yeah.
It's like 1 game
And
for that?
and this is another thing that crossed my mind that I'm just like, I don't feel the need to tweet this stuff out consistently because it's just going to cause a mess. But again, for the listening audience here, because this is why you come to this podcast, because this is where we have the good stuff, is um, it seemed like various parts of Regina Rider fandom, the organization, took their turn showing their ass throughout the entire week. Like whether it was the Riders taking 5 days to put out a half-ass apology that obviously wasn't written by Garrett Marino, whether it was Craig Dickinson referencing his fiance as if that means a damn thing, which it does not. James Wilder Jr. tweeting out that, "Hey, congrats if you have a black friend. This ain't no club. You don't just get to hop in because you have a membership card." Like that has absolutely nothing to do with the topic whatsoever, and it should not be
Mhm.
referenced, and it does not hold any weight for or against. It's irrelevant. It does not matter. And then you have a local radio host in Saskatchewan essentially defending Garrett Marino's actions from the jump. Well, I wonder why, because he's paid by the organization to call football games. He's on the rights holder, which I know I've been part of a rights holder of a CFL team. We had pressure put on us by the Hamilton Tiger Cats in certain situations. The one that we got away with the most of speaking our minds was Art Briles,
Mhm.
because I said that I am not supporting anything to do with this. And the Ticats as an organization were under so much global heat for that move that
Yeah.
they didn't even give a damn that I said anything negative about them. I killed them on their platform for multiple days. Never heard about it because they knew I was in the right, just like most of the people in the organization knew that was a wrong thing to do. But like, if you wonder why I stopped going on Regina radio when a certain former radio host out in Saskatchewan said that Simone Lawrence was a thuggish type, that's why. If you wonder why I went on that same radio station when Derek Taylor of CF Perspective was there, it's because he's a good dude, because he knows his stuff. He's a good person. If you wonder why I stopped going on that radio station again when Derek Taylor left that radio station, now you know why.
Yeah.
Like, because there's a certain trend that has developed. There is a culture of the way these things are discussed that bothers me greatly. I'm not slandering that entire part of the country. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when there's multiple major parts of that dynamic around that team that are discussing things in a way that I'm uncomfortable with, I distance myself. I don't want to be a part of any of that.
Yeah, and man, that's a tough part, right? Because people aren't going to stick up for what they believe in that situation. They're just going to talk about whatever keeps them safe.
Yeah.
Which I get it. It's a coping mechanism. I mean, I don't get it, but it's a coping mechanism for their job. But listen, I'll leave it on this because I hate getting serious like this, but it has to be done because Masoli's a good buddy of mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Really good buddy of mine. I felt horrible for what happened, and there's things that are always said on the field in competition. Always said on the field. There's, some pretty bad shit that's always said on the field. But people generally don't cross that line. And if they do cross that line, it's just in, passing. and talking and seeing people beat back and forth. The problem is when you're a repeat offender, it happened allegedly before a game and was premeditated in that sense.
Mhm.
And then it happens in the game and there is absolutely no remorse at the time, anytime after, and even anytime now. And you understand the severity that it did to Masoli. There's no room for that. There's room for competition, beaking at each other, saying things, getting
Yeah,
under
yeah.
people's skin.
Yep.
Absolutely room for that.
Trash talk
But
is part of sport, but that ain't trash talk.
no, it's way, way, way past it at that point. So that would be my last say on
Yeah,
this.
it's
But
great. It's
yeah,
great. It's honest. Like,
yeah, it's
and,
ridiculous.
and I think my final thing would be the same as you in terms of just like Masoli deserves better. And I would say this about Garrett Marino because he's the topic of conversation and he will be in every CFL game that you're watching and every beer that you're having at every CFL stadium across the next couple of weeks is that dude now has a target on his back for the rest of his CFL career from a variety of people, whether they like him, don't like him, know him, don't know him, play with Masoli, don't know Masoli, who cares? He's put a target on himself because of the way he has played and the way that he is, and it's only going to get worse if he decides to try and lash out and stay to be the same person that he is. The second thing is, and as a league broadcaster, I probably shouldn't say this, but I really don't care because this is how I feel. I hope every stadium that guy goes into, any play he makes, he gets the shit booed out of him. I hope that it is a league wide, he makes a tackle in Hamilton, in Calgary, in Winnipeg, in BC, and every fan that's educated enough is like, boo this man. Because I think that would be amazing to just kind of feel that. But, anyways, we ended kind of heavy. We will have brighter days ahead, my friends. That is
We
it.
will. Absolutely.
That is it for the Daily News today. Thanks for tuning in. Always appreciate it. At CF Perspectives, where you can find us at Daily News 8. I am at TSN_Marsh. We will talk to you coming up next week right here on the Daily News.